One eventful day in Leningrad for Vice-President Nixon and his party. Escorted by Deputy Premier Kozlov, the Vice President devotes a good part of his tour to handshaking. Accompanying newsmen were reminded of a typical American election jaunt, and some of the Russians were startled by U.S. campaigning tactics. In some places on the Vice President's itinerary, both on the streets and in the factories, he encountered party line hecklers, but most of the crowds proved big, friendly, and demonstrative. Many thousands of Russians got Mr. Nixon's message of goodwill despite slanted accounts in the official press. A high spot of the day in Leningrad was an inspection of the Soviets' nuclear-powered icebreaker, Lenin. At first, the Vice President's party was given only a superficial tour. Then Admiral Rickover, who commands America's atomic submarine program, demanded to be shown just as much as Kozlov had been permitted to see of our atomic freighter, the Savannah. After a hard showdown debate with the Reds, Nixon and Rickover won the point. The Admiral was the first American ever to see the reactor of the Lenin. He spent 2 hours aboard, while the Vice President mingled with the shipyard workers. Mr. Nixon told the crowd the Soviet and the state of Alaska were only 40 miles apart. Very little ice for the powerful Lenin. Said he, the two nations must work together to break the ice between them. One of the most effective moments in Mr. Nixon's remarkable tour of Russia. From Honolulu to Hilo, Hawaii is swept by campaign fever. It's the former territory's first election as a state, with 81 offices open and hotly contested, from the legislature up to the governorship. 2 seats in the Senate and 1 in Congress. Candidates for governor are Republican William F. Quinn and Democrat John Burns. For Senate Seat A, Hiram Fong and Frank Fazzi. Seat B, Daniel Inouye and Dr. Charles Silva. Hawaii's voters, faced with the first opportunity to participate in the nation's government, responded with a record ballot cast by 93% of those eligible. The winners of the top posts, Governor William Quinn, Republican and a Roman Catholic. The GOP and Democrats each control 1 house of the legislature. Results generally reflect Hawaii's melting pot of varied races and religions. Elected to Congress, the first Japanese American ever, Daniel Inouye, an outstanding war hero. And the first Asian ever elected to the Senate, Hiram Fong, Chinese. Britain's newly unveiled hovercraft is readied for a Channel flight from Calais, France to Dover, England, to help commemorate the 50th anniversary of the first Channel flight by Louis Blériot. The hovercraft is more radical for its day than was the plane Blériot flew. Escorted by a flight of the latest jets, it skims the surface, cushioned on a whirlwind of air, whipped up by its powerful central fan. Someday, its designers predict, hovercraft will be making regular transatlantic cargo flights. But as of today, there's room for lots of progress. It completes the Channel flight in 2 hours and 3 minutes, only about 4 times as long as it took Blériot. Fall fashions from overseas emphasize the light and bright. In London, suits for those crisp afternoons. Collarless neckline in overchecked wool with matching scarf. Both suits show this year's trend towards longer skirts. Here's a straight jacket featuring patch pockets, edged with saddle stitching. Elegance in the afternoon. For the evening, sheer luxury never goes out of style, which means satins and silks and a slender shape. The sheath dress with discreet decorations is still very much the thing. Men's fashions again make news in Milan. Increasingly popular is the continental suit, brought up to date with the light, bright look. After years of drab conformity, the worm turns into a glowworm. Glow, man, glow. It's the annual Wild Pony Roundup on Chincoteague Island off the Virginia coast. Descendants of Spanish Mustangs cast ashore in the 16th century, fiery and untamed, they run wild in great herds at the National Wildlife Refuge here. Once a year, their numbers are thinned by the half-century-old event. They'll be driven ashore to be auctioned. But first, local youngsters get a chance at bronco busting. Rumor has it if a fella stays on, he can keep the pony. But the story isn't put to the test this time. Crowds line the shore for the seagoing stampede as the herd is driven across the shallow neck of water to the corrals. Descendants of noble and ancient lineage, they are prized breeding stock. The windup of this event will be a grand auction, with buyers traveling hundreds of miles for the wild horses of Chincoteague.